Yeah, good old boys. Let's talk about the first name on the board. Uh, this is quite a story. Joey Lagano, veteran driver, is about to retire. Joey Logano, in his farewell season, wins the point championship yesterday in Phoenix. He muscled his way to the front. He led for 107 laps, won $5 million package for Team Penske. In fact, Team Penske finished 1 and 2 in that race. It's just been an absolutely bizarre NASCAR season with controversy over cheating, rough riding, lack of respect for drivers, and then obviously the mess with a lawsuit. We'll get to that in a second. But Joey Logano wins in his final race, wins the points championship. Bobby Allison has passed away, legendary driver. This was a star in the making in the 1970s. He's one of the reasons Winston Cup racing became special. Bobby Allison passed away at age 86. He won 85 races over the course of his career. He was part of what was called the Alabama Gang. All these guys came out of Alabama simultaneously. Bobby Allison, Dale Earnhardt, all these guys arrived at the same time, and they brought their personality and their driving skills. Bobby Allison was involved in a bad fight at the end of the Daytona 500. I think it was 1979. He got in a fight in the infield after he wrecked with Cale Yarborough. They were racing first and second to win the Daytona 500, and they crashed right at the end because they were banging, swapping paint. They both wrecked their cars. Both cars slid down the middle of the infield. They got out of their cars and started throwing haymakers. It happened. It was the first nationally televised NASCAR race ever on TV. And it was in January, and it was a blizzard in the East Coast and the Midwest, and everybody got stuck at home, and they saw these two drivers throwing fists at each other in the infield as the checkered flag was being waved. Hilarious. It made NASCAR on TV an event. But Bobby Allison has passed away. Hell of a driver, good old boy, deep South twang, Christian. I interviewed him multiple times, just a fun guy. He was involved in a horrific accident at Talladega in 1988. Had a severe concussion, lost his memory and everything. I mean, he was almost a vegetable. They thought he was going to die in the hospital. He came back. He regained all of his motor skills. Now he retired. He became a car owner, but he was one of the great personalities. We call them the good old boys from the Deep South. Mm-hmm. Bobby Allison passes away. And then there's Michael Jordan, NBA star, now a NASCAR owner. Michael Jordan, we told you the story 2 weeks ago, filed a lawsuit, an antitrust lawsuit against NASCAR. To race in NASCAR, you have to sign what's called a charter agreement. It's a working agreement with NASCAR. That this is how you will operate your team. This is the cost controls you must operate under. These are the revenue streams. This is the amount of money you get from the national TV contract. Michael Jordan's of the opinion that he and his 23X team and the Front Row Racing team have filed an antitrust lawsuit, and they've hired a big antitrust sports lawyer, Jeff Kessler, to represent them. Michael Jordan is of the opinion that this is an antitrust violation. He said, NASCAR has bullied all these owners into signing a contract that does not give them enough revenue from the TV contracts and the media contracts. And these teams are really struggling to make it work because all the financial resources you have to pour in. He says it's an antitrust violation the way they're treating the owners of these NASCAR teams. He refused to sign the charter. Front Row Racing refused to sign the charter. They went to ask on Friday for an injunction that would allow them to race next season without a charter while the lawsuits continue. And the federal judge said, no, these are the guidelines. You have to sign the charter. Otherwise, you compete as an independent. You sign a charter, you're guaranteed to be in the top 36 spots in qualifying. You get a guaranteed spot in the start of every race. If you don't have a charter, you have to qualify your way in on a week-by-week basis. And if you don't qualify, that means you lose sponsorship money. You're not going to get a piece of the pie. So this thing's really at loggerheads right now. But Michael Jordan got shut out by a federal judge and said, no, the charter rules you agreed to and the charter rules remain in effect. Michael Jordan says we should freaking unionize. And that's the only way to bring NASCAR to its knees. That would mean shutting down the sport. He says it's the only way these drivers and these owners are going to get more money if we unionize and go to a collective bargaining agreement with NASCAR's owners. It's a really nasty thing. So Michael Jordan's trying to do something that nobody's ever done before in NASCAR racing. So, John, go ahead. You're a good old boy. You kind of look like a redneck sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's cool. Michael Jordan is a special person, and he's a winner, and he wants to make it work. So I like the idea that he's sort of kind of challenging the authority, challenging the system. But there really is no like alternate NASCAR. I mean, it's just IndyCar or F1 or one of those, right? So yeah, it's fascinating. Bobby Allison, I remember his name. I remember because I was a little kid in the 70s, and I remember all those famous guys. They were Indy 500 drivers, at least as far as I was concerned. But obviously, a lot of them went NASCAR. Did Bobby Allison go Indy 500?
He dabbled in Indy, but he was a NASCAR guy. He was deep South Alabama gang. That's how he grew up.
Yeah, I mean,
you should just Google Bobby Allison Daytona 500 fight.
Yeah, I did.
You won't believe the video. It's so cool.
It is. It's really good. I mean, because we talked about this about a year and a half ago or something, and you brought it up. I went back and Googled. It's hilarious. I mean, just the way this whole thing unfolded. So, yeah. I mean, we lost a great one.
And every time I remember I asked him about the fight with Yarborough because I said, this changed everything as it relates to NASCAR being just a good old boy deep South sport, became a nationwide sport on TV, and now you're racing all over the country. He said, yeah, that Cale Yarborough, he kept putting his nose in front of my fist all the time, and I had to knock him down. But what a gentleman. And he paid a terrible price. He lost 2 sons in racing. One of his sons died in a plane crash, another died in a crash, and then Bobby's career was ended. I saw the Talladega crash. I couldn't believe that he was able to be carried out of the car, but he was in very, very bad shape for a long time. But he was a hell of a salesman. He was quite a personality too. He was a Bible thumper, and he'd make sure he'd put you in the wall, but then go to church on Sunday. Say, I'm sorry.
Love thy neighbor.
That's right, except on the track. Okay, those are topics on the table. It's your turn to take over control.